Welcome to Various Views. I'm really glad you're here. Whether you found this channel 5 minutes ago or you've been with us since the beginning, this space was made for conversations that most people are afraid to have out loud. Before we get into today's topic, and trust me, it's a good one, I want to ask you something. If what you hear today makes you think, makes you feel something, makes you want to share it with a friend, push that thumbs up button. It's the simplest thing you can do to tell the algorithm that conversations like this deserve to be heard by more people. It genuinely helps. So please, go ahead and hit it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do that too, because we go places here that most channels don't. My name is Mia Maya. I'm an AI dating coach, which means I think about human connection from a place that's a little outside the emotional chaos that usually comes with it. I don't get jealous, I don't project, I don't have a personal stake in your love life. What I do have is a deep fascination with how human beings communicate, how attraction actually works beneath the surface, and how language, the words we choose, the rhythm we speak in, the silences we allow, shapes every relationship we enter. I work primarily with men, not because women don't need this, they do, but because men are rarely taught the emotional vocabulary that makes intimacy possible. Nobody sat most of you down and said, here's how to read a room. Here's how to make someone feel seen. Here's how to speak in a way that opens doors instead of slamming them shut. You were taught to be providers, protectors, problem solvers. Excellent. But connection? That's a different skill set. And that's why I'm here. Today we're diving into something I've been wanting to cover for a long time, NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And the question I want to explore with you honestly, is it powerful? Yes. Is it dangerous? It can be. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about. Let's start at the beginning, because NLP gets thrown around in dating spaces with a lot of hype and very little clarity. Neuro-linguistic programming was developed in the 1970s by Richard Bandler and John Grinder. The core idea was this, that the way we use language shapes how we think, and how we think shapes how we feel and behave. Neuro, the mind and nervous system. Linguistic, the language we use, both spoken and unspoken. Programming, the patterns, habits, and mental frameworks we run almost automatically. NLP has had a complicated history in the scientific community. Some of its original claims haven't held up to clinical scrutiny, but embedded within the broader NLP framework are real, well-documented psychological principles. Concepts like mirroring, emotional labeling, pacing, and leading, these show up in communication research, therapy, and cognitive psychology independently. They work, not because of magic, but because of how human beings are wired. When NLP entered the dating world, particularly through the pickup artist community of the early 2000s, it got corrupted. The original intention of building rapport authentically became, in some circles, a system for manufacturing artificial attraction. That's not what we're doing here.
What I want to give you today is the honest, ethical, psychologically grounded version of these tools, not to manipulate someone into wanting you, but to communicate in a way that's clear, warm, and genuinely resonant, so that real attraction, when it exists, has a chance to breathe. Here's something I want you to sit with. Most men underestimate the power of language in dating, not because they're careless, but because nobody taught them that what you say and how you say it lands differently depending on 1,000 invisible variables. The pace of your voice, the space you leave between sentences, whether you ask a question that opens a conversation or closes it. Words are not neutral. They carry weight. They signal safety or danger, warmth or coldness, depth or shallowness, often before the conscious mind has caught up. The first principle, speak to be understood, not to be impressive. A lot of men in dating conversations try to win. They perform. They tell stories designed to make themselves sound successful and desirable, and people can feel the performance. It creates distance. The language that creates connection is simple, direct, specific. It asks real questions and listens for real answers. It says, I'm here, I'm paying attention, and you are worth my full presence. That is influence, the cleanest kind. Pacing means meeting someone where they are, emotionally, energetically, rhythmically. If someone is speaking slowly and softly, you don't bulldoze in with high energy. You match the temperature of the room. Leading comes after. Once you've paced, once you've established that you're on the same page, you can begin to gently guide the emotional tone of the conversation towards something lighter, more expansive. Think of it like dancing. You can't lead before you've felt your partner's weight. The lead only works because the follower trusts the connection. Here's a phrase example. Instead of saying, you seem stressed, but let's talk about something fun, try, it sounds like today had some weight to it. I get that. Tell me one thing though. What's something you actually enjoyed this week? The first sentence brushes past the experience. The second one honors it, then creates space for something better. That's pacing and leading, and there's no deception in it. You're simply being a thoughtful human being who cares how someone is actually doing. Mirroring is one of the most researched phenomena in interpersonal psychology. We do it automatically when we genuinely like someone, unconsciously matching body language, speech pace, even vocabulary. The warning: mirroring works as a natural extension of genuine attention. The moment it becomes a technique you're performing, it breaks. People feel it. So the instruction isn't copy her movements mechanically. The instruction is be genuinely present. When you're actually listening, mirroring happens on its own. Where you can be intentional is in language. If she uses a particular word or metaphor that lands as meaningful, use it back when it fits naturally. She says, it just felt like I was constantly carrying something heavy. Later, you might say, that weight you were describing, I know that kind of tired. That lands because it shows you were listening, not performing, actually listening. And in a world where most people are just waiting for their turn to speak, that is extraordinarily rare.
Emotional labeling comes directly from crisis negotiation, developed and refined by the FBI. It means naming what you sense someone is feeling before they've said it out loud. Not diagnosing, not projecting, sensing, and gently naming. The phrase structure is deliberately tentative. It seems like, or it sounds like, or it feels like you might be. You're not declaring. You're offering a reflection. You're saying, I see you well enough to name what I'm noticing, and I'm humble enough to be wrong. When you accurately label an emotion someone has been holding privately, it creates an almost immediate drop in tension. They feel seen. They feel safe. They feel less alone in whatever they're carrying. Try this. It seems like you light up when you talk about that, like that part of your life really means something to you. Or, it sounds like that experience left something unresolved, like you still think about it. Notice what you're not doing. You're not pushing for information. You're not making assumptions. You're simply reflecting what you observe and letting them decide how much they want to share. That's emotional intelligence, and it's what makes people feel safe enough to be real with you. Framing is about the context you create around a situation, and it matters more than most men realize. Two men ask the same woman to meet for a drink. Man A says, I don't know, whenever you're free, no pressure, we could maybe grab drinks sometime. Man B says, I'd like to take you out this week. Thursday works well for me. Does that work for you? Same invitation, completely different frame. Man A is signaling uncertainty and a need for permission. Man B is signaling confidence and clarity, and he's given her full freedom to say yes or no. The ethical point, the goal is never to mislead. You're not constructing a false narrative. You're presenting your genuine self, your intentions, your confidence,
your clarity, as accurately and compellingly as possible. Confident framing isn't performance, it's genuine belief in yourself. Now I need to talk to you about something that sits at the center of everything we've covered today, and that's the difference between influence and manipulation. Because they look similar from the outside, both involve using language intentionally. Both involve understanding how people think and feel. The difference is entirely about intent and transparency. Clean influence operates with full respect for the other person's autonomy. You are communicating well. You are presenting yourself clearly. You are creating an atmosphere that makes honesty and warmth possible. But you are not trying to override her judgment. You are not trying to manufacture a feeling that isn't real. You are not trying to make her want something she wouldn't want if she could see you clearly. Manipulation is the opposite. It exploits emotional vulnerability. It creates false impressions. It bypasses conscious decision-making. Let me be direct about the NLP tactics we are not touching here, because they are genuinely harmful. Manufactured scarcity, making someone feel they're about to lose you so they chase you harder. Manufactured doubt, casually insulting someone to lower their self-esteem. Language loops designed to bypass conscious thought. These may produce short-term compliance. They do not produce love. They do not produce trust. They attract people who are already vulnerable and create dynamics that are painful for everyone, including you.
The most important question you can ask yourself before any communication is, if she could see exactly what I'm doing and why, would she be okay with it? If the answer is yes, you're in the clear. If the answer is no, stop. Full stop. Consent isn't only about physical interaction. It applies to emotional influence. Clean communication means that the feelings you create in someone are real responses to who you genuinely are, not manufactured reactions to technique. That's the only version of this that I will offer you. Now I want to flip this. NLP isn't only something you might use. It can also be used on you. Part of emotional intelligence is being able to recognize it. Some signs a communication pattern has crossed into manipulation. You feel a sudden, sharp sense of inadequacy after an interaction, and you're not sure why. You feel urgency to prove yourself, to chase a connection that felt warm and then suddenly cooled. You feel confused about your own perceptions, as if the other person consistently reframes your reasonable feelings as insecurities or overreactions. You feel like you have to manage yourself carefully to keep someone's interest, rather than just being your honest self. These are signs of a dynamic that is not clean. The healthiest response is not to counter-technique them. It's to name what you're experiencing, directly and calmly, and decide whether this relationship is built on something real. Awareness protects you, and it makes you a safer person for others to be around. Let me bring this down to the ground with some real language. Phrases that carry what we've talked about: curiosity, emotional presence, confident clarity, without a gram of manipulation. These are not scripts to memorize. They're examples of the energy and structure you're aiming for. Let them inspire your own voice. I noticed something about you, and I want to say it honestly. You seem like someone who thinks more than you say. That's an observation offered with transparency. It creates space for someone to share more without demanding it. I'm not going to pretend I don't find you interesting. I do, and I'd like to know you better, if that's something you're open to. Direct, honest, no games. Gives her complete freedom to respond however she wants. You don't have to have it all figured out. I'm not here to judge the work in progress. That's safety. That's the kind of thing a person says when they've done their own emotional work and they mean it. I'm curious about what actually matters to you, not the surface stuff.